Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into a topic that, honestly, unlocks confidence for anyone navigating the English language. We're talking about how to speak English clearly, powerfully, and most importantly, with genuine confidence. And, forget what you think you know about sounding smart in English, because the surprising truth, straight from our source material today, is that your biggest strength isn't like complex vocabulary or these elaborate sentences. It's radical simplicity. So many learners struggle with confidence precisely because they believe they need to sound incredibly sophisticated. But the truth is, simplicity isn't a weakness. It's your superpower in communication. Simple English is, well, it's universally understood and profoundly powerful.
That's it, exactly. Our mission in this deep dive is to be your shortcut, really. We're pulling the most vital insights from our guide, How to Talk in Simple English, Speak Clearly and Confidently. We're here to give you those surprising facts and the practical strategies that will actually transform you into a more effective and definitely a much more confident English speaker, ready to unpack some game changers.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So our first big revelation today, that deep-seated belief that, big words automatically make you sound smarter, more fluent.
Yeah.
Turns out it's actually holding you back. It's almost an instinct for many learners, isn't it? This pressure to impress with a huge vocabulary.
It's so counterintuitive, but yeah, that instinct often backfires. Our source makes a really crucial point here. The true goal of speaking isn't really to impress, it's to be understood. When you overcomplicate your language, especially like in a fast-paced conversation or maybe with other non-native speakers, you just create confusion. People genuinely value clarity and simplicity above all else.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Our guide reveals that some of the world's most influential leaders and communicators intentionally choose simple English. They use short words, common phrases, even when discussing incredibly complex topics.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about making things clear. It's actually about building a connection, building trust. It kind of strips away any pretense,
It's a powerful lesson, isn't it? Look, consider this direct example from our guide. Someone aiming for smart might say something like, I would like to take this opportunity to articulate my deep appreciation for your assistance in this endeavor. Okay, now compare that to the simple English version. Thank you so much for helping me.
Wow, yeah.
Which one feels more genuine, more direct? The contrast is pretty stark.
That's the aha moment
Yeah.
right there. Simple English just fosters connection. It's easily understood,
Yeah.
right? And it gets a positive response because listeners don't have to sit there and decode anything.
Yep.
It flows naturally.
And if we think about this in terms of genuine fluency, it's really clear. When you're reaching for complicated words you barely know, you hesitate. Your speech slows right down. You're probably second-guessing yourself.
Totally.
But when you rely on words you know inside out, words that are comfortably yours, you speak with genuine confidence and a much more natural rhythm.
So the practical advice here is beautifully straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Don't force those advanced words. Use them when they feel natural, and only when you're absolutely sure you understand their nuance. And be so mindful of technical terms or academic expressions or those uncommon idioms. They're usually the quickest way to lose your listener.
Exactly.
Remember, you're speaking for them, not just for your own ego.
Right. So what you can do right away is just trust the words you already know, basic stuff like help, good, bad, want, need. They're actually really powerful. Focus on your core message and maybe challenge yourself. Can I say this in one sentence? Or using the shortest words possible. And here's a great tip from the source. Actively observe how native speakers keep things simple in real-life conversations, whether it's, an interview or just a casual chat on a mat, a deep dive like this one.
Love it. The central takeaway for this first section is just so powerful. Let go of that pressure to sound smart. Instead, speak to be understood. Because that truly is where all real communication begins. Okay, so we've talked about simplicity in words, but what about in structure? Because it's not just about the words you pick, is it?
Got it all.
It's how you string them together that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the often underestimated power of short sentences for clear English.
You know, when we talk about short sentences, what's the immediate, almost unconscious benefit for the listener? They grasp ideas instantly.
Right.
There's less confusion, conversations keep moving, and for you, the speaker, there's a massive gain in control and confidence. The big problem we often see is learners trying to cram way too much information into one long, winding sentence, heavy with connectors like however and which, making it feel really cumbersome.
Oh, yeah. Our source has such a compelling example that really highlights this. Imagine saying, I was planning to go to the store in the afternoon. However, since it started raining heavily and I forgot my umbrella, I decided to wait until the weather improved, which I hope will happen soon. Phew! Now, just hear the simpler version. I wanted to go to the store this afternoon, but it started raining heavily. I forgot my umbrella, so I decided to wait. Hope the weather gets better soon.
See, the difference in mental effort for the listener is just night and day.
It feels better, doesn't it?
It really does. It's because delivering information step by step, one idea at a time, that's the secret to highly effective communication. And no, it doesn't sound childish. Not at all. It's direct, it's punchy, much like how journalists write headlines for, instant comprehension. People remember clear ideas, not complex grammatical structures.
And the benefits for you, the speaker, they're truly immense. Short sentences give you time to breathe, right? To think, to self-correct even. They're like a built-in safety net, preventing confusion and drastically reducing those grammar mistakes we all worry about.
Absolutely.
Plus, they create this natural, steady rhythm that's much easier for listeners to follow, almost like the beat in a song.
Yeah, exactly. And a simple, practical exercise from the guide is to pick a topic, say, my weekend, and just write 5 short sentences about it. Then read them aloud, like, I stayed home this weekend, I cleaned my room, I watched 2 movies, I cooked pasta, it was relaxing.
This builds confidence in just creating those basic structures. You can always combine them later if you want, but start simple.
And in real conversations, it means responding with one idea first, then maybe expanding if you're prompted. So if someone asks, what do you do in your free time? You can just say, I read books. I also watch English videos. Simple. You don't have to give your entire life story in one breath.
Right. When we look at the bigger picture, short sentences are your communication allies for like 5 core reasons. They're easier to say, easier to understand, they slash grammar mistakes, they give the listener time, they make your ideas memorable, and they genuinely build your confidence. So if you ever find yourself feeling stuck or overwhelmed, just remember this simple mantra. Say less, but say it clearly. Short sentences are truly your best friends in English. Okay, let's talk about another common pitfall that often leads to that stiff, nervous kind of speech. Treating every English conversation like it's a formal exam. I've certainly felt that pressure before, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. It's so relatable. And the simple yet really profound solution the source offers is just speak like you're talking to a friend. This instantly shifts your focus from trying to achieve perfection to making a genuine connection. It allows for relaxed, natural words, pauses, maybe even a little laughter, just like you would in your native language. It's about letting the conversation breathe.
The impact of this mindset is truly incredible, isn't it? It genuinely transforms your tone, making it warmer, smoother, and instantly more confident. It's not really about having flawless grammar. It's about your presence feeling real, authentic human.
It makes sense, right? People don't respond to perfection. They respond to authenticity. Our guide suggests a powerful visualization technique. Imagine you're talking to someone incredibly patient and supportive, even when you're just practicing alone. This helps build a real emotional connection to English. And, when you treat others like friends, they naturally tend to reciprocate, becoming more open and often clearer themselves.
Now, just to be clear, this isn't about being careless or suddenly dropping slang in a professional meeting or something.
Yes, no.
It's about adapting your speech so it feels natural and approachable for the situation. Many professionals, even in very serious roles, maintain a friendly, warm tone. They prioritize easy, comfortable words over overly difficult ones that might just create distance or sound, important without actually adding clarity.
You see this contrast really clearly in the examples. What the source calls textbook English might sound like. I would like to inquire about the status of the project which was discussed in the previous meeting. Okay. But friendly English is just, hi, just checking in. Do you have any updates on the project we talked about?
Much better.
The second version is still professional, but it's real, it's human, it invites collaboration.
A fantastic way to observe this is by watching native speakers in more casual settings, maybe vlogs, laid-back podcasts, or even just TV shows. Pay attention to their tone and how they use simple phrases like, hey, how's it going? Or no worries. These phrases, while simple, carry a surprising amount of warmth and make communication feel effortless.
Exactly. And for your personal practice, the guide encourages you to practice aloud alone, maybe describing your day or your plans, all while maintaining that supportive talking to a friend, internal dialogue. It truly helps you build an emotional connection to the language, which brings your words to life.
The key takeaway here is really deeply insightful. Streak with warmth, and people will listen with open hearts. It's about connection, not just correctness. Okay, next up, let's challenge another common misconception. This idea that a truly intelligent English speaker always uses fancy, maybe obscure vocabulary. So many learners spend hours trying to jam big words into every sentence. I've definitely been guilty of that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic trap, isn't it? The surprising truth, though, is that in real conversations, simple words are almost always clearer, stronger, and far more effective. Your goal isn't really to show off how many words you know, it's to help others understand you. That's precisely why the most successful communicators tend to gravitate towards basic, direct, and familiar vocabulary.
Our source gives such clear examples to illustrate this power of simplicity. Instead of saying something like, the weather is quite inclement today, you simply say, the weather is really bad today. Or, rather than, I am currently experiencing significant difficulties with time management, just say, I'm having trouble managing my time. The simpler versions are undeniably more natural and, critically, much more understandable.
And here's why that simplicity is so powerful. Simple words aren't less impactful. Often, they're more impactful because they're memorable, they create strong, immediate images in the listener's mind, and they connect with listeners instantly. Native speakers naturally prefer strong, short words in everyday speech. Think about phrases like, let's fix it, or he's a good guy. These are direct, they carry emotion, and they're understood without a second thought.
So here's a clear guideline from the source. If you wouldn't typically say it to a close friend in your native language, then probably don't force it in English. Words like utilize, commence, or subsequently, they're generally reserved for very formal, pretty specific settings like maybe academic writing or legal documents.
It's interesting. Using overly formal language can actually create a kind of emotional distance. Consider this. I would like to express my sincerest appreciation for your continued support. Well, it's grammatically correct. It feels less personal, doesn't it, than just saying, thanks so much for always being there for me.
Way less personal.
The simpler version genuinely builds trust and connection.
For practical improvement, the guide suggests trying to build a personal list of strong, simple foundation words. Things like help, try, easy, hard, think, say, and so on. Then consciously practice replacing complicated words in your writing, or maybe even just in your head before you speak, with those simpler ones. For example, turn the project's outcome exceeded initial expectations into something like the project went better than we thought.
Yeah.
Same meaning, clearer delivery, much more natural.
The ultimate goal here isn't to look smart. It's really to be heard. It's to connect. So focus on the words that truly work to achieve that connection.
Okay, let's unpack another common struggle for English learners. That feeling of trying to build every single sentence from scratch, every single time you speak. It's exhausting, right?
It is.
And it often leads to hesitation and just immense frustration.
It truly is exhausting. But here's the secret weapon, really, of fluent speakers. They don't reinvent the wheel constantly. They rely heavily on common phrases, expressions, and established sentence patterns or structures. This means they're not constructing every thought from absolute zero. They're pulling from this huge mental toolbox of readily available kind of pre-built linguistic units.
Our source gives us some fantastic examples of these simple, repeatable phrases. They're like the workhorses of everyday English. I'm not sure, but that sounds interesting. Let me think about it. Hey, can you help me with this? These are conversational shortcuts that just make you sound incredibly natural.
And they make you so much more efficient. Think about common sentence structures. Instead of trying to construct something complex like, I believe that studying English consistently can lead to long-term improvement, you can simply use a pattern like, I think that something happens, and say, I think that studying English helps a lot.
Exactly.
It's faster, and it just flows better.
That's the real beauty of patterns. Once you learn them, you can just swap out the last part to say something completely new, like with, I don't really like spicy. You can easily say, I don't really like spicy food, or I don't really like working late. Other incredibly useful patterns are things like, I'm used to, or I've been. It just makes speaking so much faster and more natural. I find I use these without even thinking now.
And that's the key to fluency right there. These patterns become automatic. They drastically reduce the decision-making stress you feel while speaking, and they make your English sound much more natural, like how real people actually talk, not just how grammar books explain it.
So how do you actually build this muscle? Our source outlines some clear, actionable steps. First, you got to immerse yourself and just listen. Pay close attention to native speakers in everyday situations and truly notice how words work together in these common phrases or chunks. Second, practice. Speak these patterns aloud, maybe record yourself, and repeat until they just feel automatic, until they roll off the tongue.
Right.
And third, write. Maybe create a personal phrase book of useful patterns. Review them often and actively try to integrate them into your own speech.
It's amazing how even the most fluent, natural-sounding conversations often use a surprisingly small number of these basic patterns. Consider this simple exchange. Hey, how's it going? Not bad. I've been a little busy lately. Same here. Work's been crazy. Tell me about it. I just want a break.
So simple.
Very basic structures, right? But they sound completely natural and fluent because they're common, comfortable patterns.
The key takeaway here is simple, but really powerful. Speak smarter, not harder. Use what works, what's common, what's real. Don't reinvent everything every time. Okay, here's a thought that might challenge some traditional ideas about what fluency actually means. The notion that it means speaking incredibly fast without ever stopping.
Yeah, it's a common misconception, isn't it? But our source directly redefines fluency. It says it's not really about speed, it's about clarity, confidence, and that connection we keep talking about, and pausing. It's highlighted as one of the very best ways to improve your clarity and confidence. Rushing, on the other hand, almost always tangles your words, introduces grammatical errors, and ultimately, you lose your listener.
The guide really emphasizes that native speakers do pause. We breathe, we give space between ideas. It's not a sign of weakness at all. It's actually a sign of control. You're giving the listener time to process what you're saying, and importantly, giving yourself time to think.
Exactly. So how does pausing actually help? Well, the source says it works in 3 incredibly powerful ways. First, it gives your brain time. When you rush, you're basically speaking faster than your brain can keep up, which leads to those frustrating mistakes and those filler words like or
Right.
A pause, even just for a second, helps you find the right word and genuinely builds your confidence because you feel more in control. Second, it helps your listener understand. Think of it like rhythm in music. Pauses create meaning and prevent listener overwhelm. Listen to the difference here. Without pausing. I think we can finish this project today. If you help me with the design part, I'll handle the rest. It's just a blur.
Yeah, totally lost me.
Now, with pausing, I think we can finish this project today if you help me with the design part, and I'll handle the rest.
Ah, much better. The clarity is dramatically improved.
Isn't it? And the third way pausing helps is by giving you control. It shows you're not just scrambling to get words out, you're leading the conversation, thinking as you go, and that makes you appear much more confident, even if you're still learning.
So how do we practice this?
To put this into practice, the source advises reading things aloud slowly, making sure to pause after sentences, and maybe even after key ideas within a sentence.
Right.
Then, when you're speaking spontaneously, make a conscious effort not to rush to fill every single silence. Let silence be a powerful tool in your conversational arsenal, not something to fear.
That was really insightful. And you can observe this in action, right? Like watching interviews or TED Talks. Skilled speakers use pauses deliberately for impact, to transition between topics or maybe to convey emotion. Pauses make speech sound human and authentic, not like a robot reading a script.
Definitely. And some extra practical tips from the guide. Actively try to replace those filler words with just silence. Use those pauses to take a breath and reset your thoughts. And if you can, practice with a friend. It helps you get comfortable with that new, maybe slightly slower rhythm.
The reassurance from our guide is really clear and comforting. Real fluency isn't about speed. It lives in calm speech and thoughtful pauses. So the reminder is, slow down. Say one idea at a time. Pause. Let your words breathe. Now let's talk about the pressure many learners feel to over-explain things in English, which maybe ironically often leads to more confusion than clarity.
Yeah, it's a common instinct, isn't it? To try and define everything perfectly. But is there a more powerful approach? Our source says yes. Use examples. Examples clarify meaning without needing to define every single word. They bring ideas to life through context, and honestly, they're surprisingly easy to give. They show rather than just tell.
Our source gives a perfect illustration of this. Imagine trying to explain the word lazy. A long explanation might be something like, lazy means someone who doesn't like to work or doesn't do things on time because they don't feel like it, or they're always tired, or they avoid doing anything difficult.
Wow, that's exhausting just listening to it.
Right, that's a mouthful. But a clear example like, my brother never helps with cleaning, he just watches TV all day, he's lazy, is instantly, effortlessly understood. I remember trying to explain procrastination once, and I think I went on for like 5 minutes, only for someone to finally say, oh, you mean like me with my laundry?
Yeah.
And I realized, yeah, an example's worth 1,000 words there.
That's such a great story and so true. Examples make meaning clear, real, and incredibly memorable. This is precisely how native speakers learn and teach language from childhood onwards. Think about explaining a word like stress. Instead of a complex, abstract definition, a personal example such as, before my big exam, I couldn't sleep, I kept thinking about all the things I didn't study, that's when I feel really stressed, brings the idea to life and makes it instantly relatable.
And it's not just about defining single words, is it? Examples powerfully support abstract ideas and opinions, too, transforming them into relatable little stories that stick with people much longer than any dry explanation ever could.
And another often overlooked benefit is that using examples naturally simplifies your grammar. Instead of needing complex sentence structures for your detailed explanations, you can often use clear, direct sentences for your examples, like, when I'm tired, I drink coffee. Simple, direct, universally understood.
So how do you make this a habit? The source offers several really actionable steps. First, actively practice turning your explanations into examples whenever you can. Second, use personal stories, even really simple ones that are often the most powerful. Third, actively listen for how native speakers use examples in real conversations. You'll hear common phrases like, for example, or like the other day, or for instance. And finally, maybe build your own small mental library of personal examples for common ideas you talk about often.
The key is to truly try and think like a storyteller. Always ask yourself, can I show this instead of just explaining it?
The impactful takeaway here is really crucial. Examples are the bridge between language and understanding. And when people understand you, you build trust. It's so fundamental. Okay, let's talk about what our source identifies as a major persistent barrier to fluency. The habit of translating every single sentence from your native language in your head before you speak it in English.
Oh, it's such a huge hurdle for so many people. And what's interesting are the ripple effects it causes. It leads to slow speech, often incorrect grammar because you're forcing one language's structure onto another, sometimes strange word order, and just a significant lack of confidence. Translation is rarely, if ever, exact because each language has its own unique rhythm, its own unique way of thinking and structuring ideas. Thinking directly in English is what builds those natural-sounding sentences and enables much faster, more confident responses.
Our source uses a great analogy for this. Translation is like trying to run a race, but stopping at every single step to switch shoes. It just slows you down massively. Thinking directly in English, however, is like flowing smoothly, just gliding. You're not stopping. You're not questioning every single word choice. You're just moving forward with a thought.
So the natural question then is, how do you actually train this thinking in English muscle? It's not easy, but the guide offers a clear step-by-step approach. Start really small. Just name objects around you in English: chair, window, desk. Then move to simple internal thoughts like I'm hungry or it's cold today. Think them in English. Next, try narrating your simple actions, either aloud or just in your head. I'm brushing my teeth, I'm making coffee. Ask and answer basic questions with yourself like, what time is it? It's 8 a.m. Create these mini dialogues. And crucially, don't worry about mistakes, especially at first. The goal is flow, not perfection, just getting the thoughts happening in English. And immerse yourself as much as possible. Surround yourself with English by listening to things like this, watching shows, reading books. The more input, the better. And finally, challenge yourself to stop translating even when you write. Just try to write directly in English, no matter how simple it feels initially.
This process so clearly illustrates the growth, doesn't it? From that early stage where you think in your native language, then translate, and then speak slowly and hesitantly, to a later stage where you actually think directly in English and then speak smoothly, confidently, and much more naturally.
And thinking about its impact on real conversation, thinking in English is what enables those true, real-time responses. In the heat of the moment, there's simply no time to translate everything word for word. The faster you can process information and form thoughts directly in English, the more naturally you can listen, understand, and respond. That's what real fluency truly feels like, being present in the conversation.
So the encouraging thought here is this. Let your thoughts walk in English before they run, because when your mind speaks English, your mouth will follow. It's about building that internal habit. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to an often overlooked yet incredibly powerful skill in English conversations. The art, really, of asking questions. So many learners focus almost exclusively on just giving answers.
It's a fascinating area because questions do far more than just get information, don't they? They keep conversations alive, they show genuine interest, and they build connections. When you ask questions, speaking feels much less like you're taking a test and much more like a friendly, two-way exchange. Most learners concentrate solely on formulating the perfect answer, but real conversations are a dialogue, a dance back and forth.
And there are some really powerful advantages to asking questions. First, as the source points out, it buys you time. If you're feeling nervous or maybe unsure what to say next, asking a simple question shifts the attention, giving you a precious moment to relax and plan your next thought.
That's a great point.
Second, it shows you care. which is a massive trust builder. When you ask about someone else, they feel heard. And third, it's actually a brilliant way to learn, exposing you to new vocabulary and sentence structures directly from real living conversations.
So, how do you ask simple, natural questions without feeling awkward? Well, the guide suggests starting with the absolute basics: who, what, when, where, why, how. Simple stuff like, what do you like to do on weekends?
Hmm.
Simple yes-no questions like, do you like coffee, are also incredibly effective. Just remember that rising intonation at the end.
Right?
And always try to use follow-up questions to show you're truly listening. If someone mentions they read books, ask, oh, what kind of books do you like? It shows engagement. And critically, don't ever be afraid to ask for clarification if you don't understand something. Saying, sorry, what does that mean? Or could you say that again? Is a perfectly acceptable, very common question.
That's good advice. For practical application, the source suggests trying a simple challenge. Next time you meet someone new, try to ask them at least 2 questions. Even when you're alone, you can practice asking yourself questions and then answering them out loud. It just helps build the habit of formulating questions quickly.
If we think about the bigger picture of conversation, questions are what truly balance the speaking and listening parts. They drastically reduce that fear of awkward silence because you always have something to say, and they naturally guide the conversation forward. Conversations aren't tests, remember, they're shared journeys, and questions are kind of like your compass on that journey.
Our source beautifully summarizes the effective use of questions. Use basic words. Use yes-no questions. Follow up. Don't be afraid to clarify. Practice daily. And always strive to balance the conversation. Don't just dominate or only answer.
The core idea here is really profound. Talking is not just about speaking. It's about listening, responding, and engaging. Questions are the bridge that connects all these vital parts.
Okay, finally, we're confronting what the source identifies as a major reason many learners feel utterly stuck. Practicing English only internally, maybe with apps or books, without ever taking the leap into real-life interaction.
Yeah, it's a huge hurdle to overcome, but so critical. And what's interesting is the emphasis on the critical importance of real-life practice. Language is a living, breathing thing, right? It adapts to context, to emotions, to the specific people you're speaking with. No textbook, no app can truly prepare you for those unexpected moments in a real conversation, for slang, for nuances of tone, or for needing quick, natural responses. Real interaction provides immediate feedback on your tone, your body language, even cultural context, leading to dramatically faster improvement than studying alone ever could.
And while those common fears are totally valid, like the fear of making mistakes or sounding silly, our source really emphasizes that genuinely confident speakers are the ones who take the risk anyway. They understand that putting their English out there, imperfections and all, is the only way to truly grow. I know for myself, the very first time I had to actually give directions in a foreign language, I completely stumbled through it. But honestly, it taught me more than a whole week of just studying grammar rules.
That's such a great example, and it's so true. So the natural question is, how do you actually start practicing in real life, especially if you're feeling nervous? The guide offers incredibly practical ways. First, try to find conversation partners, maybe friends, classmates, or use online language exchange platforms. Second, join clubs or groups where English is the main language, even if it's just a casual book club or a hobby group. Third, use everyday opportunities, those simple interactions at stores, banks, or coffee shops. Just ordering something is practice. Fourth, speak with yourself aloud, maybe describing your daily activities or telling simple stories.
Recording yourself helps too, right?
Absolutely. Record yourself. Listen back. Maybe compare your speech to native speakers. Crucially, embrace mistakes. See them as opportunities for growth, not failures. And learn from real feedback. Ask trusted friends or teachers for honest insights. And finally, set realistic, achievable goals. Start small, like just ordering food or making a simple phone call.
Real-life practice teaches so many crucial skills beyond just vocabulary and grammar. It teaches you how to handle misunderstandings gracefully, how to ask for repetition without feeling embarrassed, how to smoothly change topics, how to use gestures effectively, and how to really actively listen. These are skills rarely found in books, but they are absolutely essential for flowing, natural conversation.
When we think about the bigger picture, language is fundamentally a tool for human connection. The more you use it with real people and real situations, the stronger and more natural your skills inevitably become. It has to leave the page and enter the world.
So the call to action from our source is clear and really empowering. Practice in real life, make mistakes, learn, grow. Don't stay trapped in your head. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, the powerful core idea we've explored today is truly transformative, I think. Speaking simple English is the absolute key to confident communication. You really don't need to know every single complicated word or speak perfectly without a single mistake to be deeply understood and to genuinely connect with other people. What truly matters is clarity, connection, and maybe the courage to simply speak.
And if we quickly recap those 10 core ideas that will unlock this for you. First, speak to be understood, not just to sound smart. Second, use short sentences, say one thing at a time. Third, talk like you're chatting with a friend. Fourth, choose strong, simple words over fancy ones. Fifth, use common phrases and patterns, don't reinvent the wheel. Sixth, pause more, slow down. Seventh, show meaning with examples, not long explanations. Eighth, try to think directly in English. Ninth, ask more questions to keep conversations flowing. And finally, number 10, practice in real life, not just in your head.
The ultimate benefit for you, our listener, is potentially immense. Applying these steps builds genuine, lasting confidence. They can transform English from what might feel like a daunting barrier into a powerful tool and really a beautiful bridge to new people, new opportunities, and entirely new experiences.
Your English journey is absolutely unique, and remember, every single step forward, no matter how small it feels, is progress. So we'd like to leave you with this to ponder. What is one simple change you can make today, starting now, to speak English more confidently in your daily life?
We encourage you to really think about that question and start applying these incredible insights. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.